You're listening to the Pre-Hospital Care podcast on the Medics Academy Network.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're talking about Shane Bradley's story. Shane is a cardiac arrest survivor with a second chance at life. So on the podcast, we spend quite a lot of time discussing clinical decision making, some of the operational challenges and the science that underpins pre-hospital care. But every now and then it's really important to step back and remember why we do what we do. So behind every dispatch is a person, and behind every set of observations is a family. And behind every successful mission is a story that often continues long after the helicopter's landed and the ambulance has left. So today's guest is Shane Bradley. And on the 27th of July 2025, what began as an ordinary day quickly became a fight for survival when Shane suffered a heart attack. So thanks to the rapid response of the emergency services, including Devon Air Ambulance, he was transported to definitive care. So his consultant later told him that something few patients ever hear, that the helicopter almost certainly made a difference between life and death. So nearly a year later, Shane isn't simply reflecting on what happened. He's determined to give back. So to mark the anniversary of what he calls his second chance of life, Shane is embarking on an extraordinary challenge, actually. So he's riding his motorcycle 1,000 miles in under 24 hours to raise funds for the charity for Devon Air Ambulance, which helped save his life. So this is a conversation really with Shane about his survival, his gratitude, but also his recovery and the profound impact that HEM services and pre-hospital care can have, not just on a patient outcome, but really on the rest of Shane's life. Shane, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, really. Shane, I wondered if we could start really take us back to July 27th, 2025. And maybe just back to that day. It was supposed to be a normal day. Take us back to really, the first moments that you realized something wasn't right that day.
I had just returned from a solo motorcycle camping trip. I'd been away in the Yorkshire Dales on my own for a week. And I'd returned home on the Saturday. This was Sunday morning, early hours of Sunday morning. I was woken with what I thought was indigestion. So I got up, wandered around the house, tried not to disturb anyone else, had a drink of milk, tried an indigestion remedy. Nothing seemed to work. And it just pottered around for probably 4 hours. And my wife eventually woke, came downstairs, asked what was up. And as we were talking, I suddenly had this real tightness in my chest and dropped to my knees, began sweating profusely, and I knew something was seriously wrong. So, it went very quickly from, oh, crumbs, I've got a bit of indigestion, to something's not right here, really not right.
Yeah, indeed. And so at that point, it like you said, it's a bit of a shift from like what seemed like indigestion to gosh, it's maybe central chest pain or crushing sensation. And it was at that point that your wife called for an ambulance. What happened after that?
No, my wife tends to be a bit of a panicker, so I just asked her to phone my son, who lives around the corner from us, and he came around, threw me in his car and took me to our local community hospital, which is only about 500 meters away. So I was down there from phoning him. I was probably down there in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, indeed. And what happened after that? So often we interview cardiac arrest survivors, and there's quite a lot of post cardiac arrest amnesia, because things kind of go blank, and it's about piecing the puzzle together. But what are the last things you remember before the emergency response and indeed Devon Air Ambulance got to you?
It was a Sunday morning, an early Sunday morning. It's a community hospital. It was staffed by nurses. They very quickly gathered around me, gave me a GTN spray under the tongue, which eased things, called for paramedics. An ambulance turned up, paramedics came. They gave me morphine. Oh, the morphine. I loved the morphine. It was fantastic. Really enjoyed that. Everything seemed to ease then. The tension went. And then I can remember I was apologizing because I was sweating profusely and I was really embarrassed about it. I kept apologizing to the nurses, and they were just fantastic. They were well drilled, well organized. They were reassuring, and I can remember my wife came down. She'd just been getting ready for work. She works in a supermarket. She had a Sunday shift. She came down and she was stood with one of the nurses who was talking to her, and she apologized. She explained to them that I'm quite a drama queen. And I can remember the look on her face when the nurse said, "No, he's having a heart attack." It was a priceless moment.
Yeah, indeed. No, indeed. And it's just realizing the gravity
Yeah.
of the situation. And so we say often, Shane, that, it takes a system to save a life. And to your point, it's as equally as important about what happened in the community hospital with the GTN, the morphine and the treatment there, as to the paramedics and indeed Devon's Air Ambulance. But what do you remember? So do you remember Devon's Air Ambulance getting to you, or by that time had you had things already started to
Oh,
escalate?
no, I fade in and out because I can. One of the things I remember is somebody was shouting for me to wake up, and that happened several times. Um, I can remember being transferred into the ambulance because the helicopter had landed probably 300 yards away or 300 meters away at a local junior school in the car park. So the ambulance took me out to the helicopter, and it's a little bit sketchy. I was fading in and out, and somebody would say, "Shane, Shane, wake up, wake up." Um, I can remember that one of the paramedics and also, or it may have been one of the helicopter ambulance crew kept waking me up to point out that he was doing all of the work and everyone else was just bantering. "Look, they're just chatting the nurses up. I'm doing all the work. I want you to remember this." And there was a lot of humor and banter between them, and that in itself was reassuring. It's like, oh, they're not worried. Maybe I shouldn't be worried.
Yeah.
It was, there was humor there.
Yeah,
You like,
sometimes there needs to be a bit of light
yes,
humor to alleviate what is a frightening situation
yeah.
actually, and quite a scary situation. So like it was a true MDT approach, a multidisciplinary team approach. You had people working around you, but you said, well, I think one of the salient sound bites, Shane, is that the consultant said that, look, if the helicopter hadn't been there, it really would have made a difference between life and death. How did it feel to you, sort of hearing those words?
He told me that. I think his exact words were the helicopter gave him something to work with because of the time saving. And I can fully believe that. I live 55 miles, 60 miles, but you're probably 70, 80 or 90 kilometers away from the hospital that I needed to get to. And the roads are not the best. And the helicopter made the difference. It was a very short trip. To get me there, I was taken out of the helicopter, straight down to the theatre, had a stent fitted. I was awake for that procedure, and I can remember the instant relief the moment the stent was deployed. It was absolutely, that was the moment I felt, it felt like being born again. It was all of the pressure fell away, all of the stress fell away. I felt really tired as though I'd been working out and I just wanted to sleep, which they did let me do shortly after. But yes, when I spoke with the consultant after, and he said it was the helicopter that made the difference, which I I've been at pains when I'm explaining to people to say that the helicopter was a link in the chain. Everyone else in that chain did their bit, and between them, they all kept me alive. But what was working against me was time, and that's what the helicopter gave everyone else.
Yeah, and absolutely to your point, it's the system, and that's a fundamental link in the system is the helicopter in these circumstances. Um, but Shane, to your point around the physical and the emotional burden and of just the exhaustion, because like you said, the heart has been working overtime just to try and cope with the insult of having a blocked artery. Just walk us through, because certainly as paramedics and flight paramedics and pre-hospital teams, we get to see that snapshot, but we don't necessarily get to see the full journey of rehabilitation. Just walk us through, like you said, you had a massive alleviation, that you just wanted to rest and recuperate in the moment. How were the preceding sort of days and weeks afterwards?
There was the shock of being ill. I've always been an active person. I was an army reserve in an infantry regiment. We ran everywhere. Running has been my regular exercise all of my life, and I thought I was relatively fit. And the actual shock of having a heart attack, um, members of my family, my brother's rather more rotund than I am, and my wife phoned and asked, could he inform the family what had happened? And their response was, we thought it would be, they thought it would be me phoning to say that he'd had a heart attack. They couldn't believe it was me.
Yeah.
And it was the shock that came with that. And I felt very weak. But what I wanted to do more than anything was get back to normal. And I just wanted to do something normal. And probably about a week in, I cooked the evening meal, which has always been the routine. My wife starts work very early in the morning. She comes home. I make sure that I come in from work and cook the evening meal. And to actually do something normal, to cook the evening meal, it made it, I just wanted to be normal.
And
And
I understand that. Yeah.
yes, and I went in, it was quite exhausting, but the following week I went in to see my colleagues at work. And it was just walking. I found that shattering just to go in there, spend 20 minutes chatting to them, come back out, get in the car. I came straight home and went to sleep. But to just get back to work and see the guys I work with.
It is life changing, Shane. It's a second chance at life, and having a cardiac arrest from a myocardial infarction from a heart attack, it's this very sobering thought. And I guess in a way, could you maybe unpack for us and speak to really how it's changed your perspective on life?
I'm a more relaxed person. Somebody wants to cut in front of me in a queue. I don't know what their story is. They might be somebody who's being a plonker. It might be somebody who's rushing to get his wife to hospital. So I'll tend to let them go. Um, I have more patience with people. I roll with the punches more. I don't get wound up over things. And I wake up every morning, even if it's a work day, and I'm pleased that I've woken up. And I'm a fanatical motorcyclist. And every time I throw my leg over a bike, it's another opportunity to do that. I'm pretty sure there aren't motorcycles in the next life, so I want to make the most of them in this one. And it's been great as well because my mum has spent 40 years saying, you shouldn't ride motorcycles, they'll kill you. And I was able to pick up the phone to her and say, well, guess what, mum? It wasn't bikes.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, it was something very different. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you've decided to give something back, Shane, which is fantastic to see. And, this it's an incredible challenge, riding over 1,000 miles in under 24 hours to raise money for Devon's Air Ambulance. But could I to maybe unpack for us really, that decision to give something back and indeed to turn, I guess, what was really a bad incidents or moment or experience into a positive one.
As soon as I came around and I was thinking coherently again, in hospital, I knew I had to do something. I'm actually the third member of my immediate family who's been airlifted to hospital. And the fact that it can happen to anyone at any time, you don't know. There's in the UK National Lottery, the slogan is "It could be you." The same applies to being carted off in an air ambulance, except the odds are a lot smaller. And I just wanted to do something. I thought I have to support this. So a couple of ladies came around as a follow-up from Air Ambulance to ask, how I was feeling. And the first thing I said to them was, I owe you a fundraiser. And I knew I wanted to do something relating to motorcycles. And I wanted to make it feature the helicopter because although Devon Air Ambulance Trust is a wonderful travel charity that is full of incredible people, the the focus of it is the fact that it's a helicopter, even though they have ground transport as well. But it's the helicopter is the feature, the romantic, the glamorous part of it. So I thought something with motorcycles, something to do with the helicopter. What can I do? And I thought it has to be something demanding. So there's an association called the Iron Butt Association, and they are a group of extreme motorcyclists. And there are challenges you can set yourself, and they will check your figures, ratify it. And the UK version, Iron Butt UK, does something called a saddle sore 1,000. So what we will be doing is taking photographs of receipts alongside the mileometer on our bikes because I have two co-riders coming with me. My wife won't let me do this on my own. And we track our record, our progress, so that we can prove that we've covered X amount of mileage in X amount of time. And they then put us on their wall of fame as people who've completed this, what is to them an entry-level challenge. So I thought, do that. It's pretty grueling. I'm introducing two bikers to it as well, which is a bonus. Hopefully they'll get bitten by the bug and want to do it again. And at the same time, it captures imagination. It's something when you're selling the fundraising to people, 1,000 miles in 24 hours, it's figures that they can grasp, they can get their heads around, and they know it's a lot.
So, why you finishing up in the place where the helicopter was built, so Donnerworth in Germany, why was it important for you to finish your journey in that place, Shane? And I guess in a way, what does that symbolism mean to you?
To begin with, I mean, the history of the factory, I believe it was Blom Voss and Messerschmitt. I'm keen on Second World War history. We both built aircraft from this site. So the fact that I'm visiting this site is a personal bonus, but it's purely bringing to people's awareness how vital this service is. And again, on a personal note, once this charity fundraiser is over, my MP is going to need to clear his desk because I am going to be on his back about this because it should be government funded. And I will devote the rest of my life to badgering my MP or any MP who comes after him on this point. But it's just purely that the whole service of the Devon Air Ambulance is centers around this fantastic machine. The most, I'm trying to think how to describe it. The most beautiful aircraft I've ever seen. There was a thing going back to the Second World War. There was a rather squat, ugly flying boat. It was a biplane with a single push engine. It was really an ugly thing called a Supermarine Walrus. And the number of accounts of Spitfire and Hurricane pilots who'd been shot down and landed in the North Sea or the English Channel, where you can die of hypothermia within an hour, being rescued by this plane and calling it the most beautiful aircraft they've ever seen, purely because it saved their life. And it's just having that link between the life saving, the charity, the helicopter, and tying it all together with my love of motorcycling.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's great to hear actually. It's like you said, it's a lovely way to align all those together. And I think the fundamental pivot, Shane, is that you've gone from being a patient in the back of the helicopter to really becoming an ambassador for the service that saved you for Devon's Air Ambulance. Could I get you to maybe speak to and maybe unpack for us really what message you'd like people to hear about supporting charities like Devon's Air Ambulance?
It's down to odds. As I say, I'm the third member of my family who's been airlifted to hospital. Um, One of those was in Afghanistan by the United States Marine Corps, but it doesn't alter the fact a helicopter picked him up, took him to hospital. My stepdaughter back in 2005, uh, playing football at school, and she managed to volley a ball very hard and broke her hip. And she was airlifted to hospital. So I've got three immediate members of family, and the number of people that I've spoken about this challenge who have family members who've been airlifted to hospital, they're everywhere. In the same way that I've had so many conversations with people who have stents and have suffered heart attacks, that looking at them, you wouldn't necessarily know that. But it brings it home to you how many people are out there who will make use of this service, and they're just wandering around at the moment completely and blissfully unaware of it. And this whole "it could be you" thing, everyone thinks they might win the lottery one day. Nobody thinks that they're going to end up in a helicopter, which is far more likely. And I just keep pushing this point to them, saying we need to support this service because you just never know when you or a loved one's going to need it.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder, actually, Shane. Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the hidden elements of this work is that sometimes the pilots, the paramedics, the doctors, and the dispatchers, the whole system really doesn't always get to close the loop on fantastic good news stories like yours, Shane. And I guess in a way, as we come into land, a couple of more questions. One would be really, what would you say to them or to the team that day that saved your life?
I've made a list. I've been wondering about what I would say, and it's thank you for my life, for my new outlook. I love my new outlook. It's more relaxing, and everyone around me likes it. I'm Shane 2.0. I'm a completely different person. Um, Thank you for sparing my family the grief that would have come with losing me. For every extra morning that I wake up, for every extra time I throw my leg over a motorcycle. I rode, I've recently come back from a motorcycling festival and I rode an electric bike for the first time. And it was an amazing experience. I felt like Wile E. Coyote strapping himself to an Acme rocket. It's unbelievable. But that was an opportunity that I experienced purely because I'm still alive to enjoy it. The list just goes on. There is just so much stuff that I've taken for granted that I now wake up every morning and realize that life is precious and you need to make the most of every day.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder. It really is, Shane. It really is. And just
Oh,
finally, as we close, I think one thing we'll do in the show notes of the episode is we'll put a link to the website, indeed, to the fundraiser, so that people can put a link through to give to the excellent challenge that you guys are doing, and just it's absolutely a fundamentally worthy cause. And just as we finish off, Shane, if you had some words or indeed some pearls of wisdom, a lot of our listeners spend their careers responding to emergencies without ever knowing what happened to their patients. If you had a word that every clinician listening today could maybe just take on board about the impact they have. Without maybe ever hearing about the outcome that they give to patients, what would those words be?
I'd like them to know that I'm in awe of their dedication and selflessness. For an example, I follow a motorcycling YouTuber who calls herself Rest Day Rider, and you can guess from the title that she's in the service. She's a paramedic from Swindon. Her name is Charlie, and occasionally, when she starts filming, she's just come off a shift. You can see in her face it's been a hard shift. No makeup, tired eyes, and sometimes she'll cry, and you can see that occasionally it is a really tough shift, and I can see that her job, your job, is brutal. But I'm so glad that you're there and you do it, and I just hope that you also enjoy moments of euphoria as well. And I hope that one sufficiently balances, or the euphoria sufficiently balances the downtime. And I'm just so grateful that you're there. I can't say any more. It's it's precious. It really is a precious thing that you do.
Well, Shane, listen, it's precious just to get your account actually, and just to get your lived experience and indeed your reflection, because I think first person accounts from a patient perspective, from your perspective, are powerful, and even just hearing you now is deeply moving, and I'm sure it will encourage both listeners, but also those that work at Devon's Air Ambulance, and indeed those that work at Airbus helicopters, because to your point, every person is fundamental in that chain. Everyone from those that build the helicopters to those that work on them to form part of that system, all enacted on that day to bring you that care. But it's powerful just to hear your story and to hear the good news story. Just as we close, Shane, just remind us of the challenge itself, when it's happening, and indeed, we'll put the links in the show notes. But just give us a reminder of the dates and indeed the duration and that 24-hour period.
I shall be leaving Stratton Junior School car park where the helicopter picked me up on the 26th of July this year at 11 o'clock in the morning. We'll be travelling from there to Exeter, which is about 60 miles away, to the base for the Devon Air Ambulance for a photo shoot. So I'll be there for about half an hour. From there, we are crossing to Folkestone to catch the train over to Calais. And then I have a route that goes from Calais to Paderborn, which is where my father spent his national service years. So I'd like to stop there. Down to Schweinfurt, to Stuttgart, and then we'll hook around to the Airbus factory from there. And I've worked it out, it's a range of about 1,060 miles, so 1,700 kilometers. And the plan is to be at the helicopter by 12 noon local time, which will be my 24-hour window.
Listen, that's fantastic, and there'll be people there to celebrate on that final mile, and certainly within Donavat, just to celebrate with you and the fantastic challenge that it is. We'll put links in the show notes to the Just Giving page, and indeed to the challenge itself. But Shane, it's a real privilege just to spend time with you today, and it just brings me back and others as to the horizon of why people join the job in the first place. Thank you for sharing your account and indeed your story. It's a powerful one. Thank you again.
Thank you for speaking with me. It's been lovely.
You're listening to the Pre-Hospital Care podcast on the Medics Academy Network.